Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. I'm a general physician. I'm not a cardiologist, but whatever knowledge I've gathered, I would like to share with you. And today I'll be talking of one of the very interesting topic. It is not a very common in your everyday practice, but if you've got a sound knowledge, you can easily pick up this patient and you can make the diagnosis and you can give a proper treatment. That is sick sinus syndrome, or we call sinus node disorders or sinus node dysfunction. So we'll be talking on that particular chapter. So again, I'll try to make it as simple as possible so you can understand very well. If you understand, you will remember. And if you remember, you will try to recognize whenever you look at the ECG. So pay attention and try to understand those things. So if you look at the number of ECG, you will have more and more idea regarding what is sick sinus syndrome, and you listen to more and more person, so you will know more and more things and you will be able to pick up those cases. So we'll be talking on a sick sinus syndrome, or we call sinus node dysfunction. We'll be talking under this heading: definition, etiology, clinical features, investigation, treatment and complication. Now what is sinus node dysfunction? You know sinus node is sinoatrial node. So whenever the sinoatrial node has got disturbances in function, we call as a dysfunction. And that disturbances is because of disorder of automaticity, conduction, or both together. So whenever a person gets disorder of automaticity, means generation of an impulse. So if a sinus node generates slow or rapid, it will be abnormal. And if the conduction from a SA node should come out and stimulate atrium and AV node, but it does not come out, we call sinoatrial block, which can be type 1, type 2, type 3. Depending upon that, you call this as a sinus node dysfunction. So automaticity will produce sinus arrest, means failure of sinus impulse to generate, or there may be a slow impulse generation or a rapid impulse generation. And in a case of an abnormal conduction, usually it is a delay or a block. So these are the two main disorders which you will come across in a sinus node dysfunction. So sinus node dysfunction is a broad category of electrophysiological defect of either impulse formation within the sinus node or propagation, or we call conduction, from the sinus node to the atria. This you can have different headings: sinus arrhythmias, and these arrhythmias can be, we can call that as a dysrhythmia, which is associated with respiration. So we call respiratory sinus dysrhythmia or non-respiratory sinus dysrhythmia. Sinus pause, or we call that as sinus arrest. Third variety, sinoatrial block, or we call sino SA node exit block. There is one another condition we call as inappropriate sinus bradycardia, inappropriate sinus tachycardia. And there is one another term called chronotropic incompetence. All these are very useful things. If you pick up, you can give the proper treatment to a person. So we'll be, some of this I've already discussed in a rhythm, but some will be repeated again. And together we call that a sinus node dysfunction. So sinus node dysfunction can be because of age related, like fibrosis, which you see very commonly in an old age group, because of atrial remodeling, particularly in a case of a heart failure where there is a big enlargement of the atrium, either a right atrium or a left atrium, and it undergoes remodeling, and it is very common with atrial fibrillation. If there is an atherosclerosis of a SA nodal artery, it produces a damage to the sinus node. If there is an infiltrative disease like amyloidosis or some surgery which has been done on a particularly right atrium. So whenever a surgery is done on a right atrium, there is always a chance of getting a damage to the SA node, or by a medication like beta blocker, CCB, amiodarone or digoxin. These are acting at the level of SA node. So this can also have sinus node dysfunction. One other odd condition we call hypothyroidism can also have an effect on a sinus node, and even a hypothermia can have an effect on sinus node dysfunction. Now if you divide into two big groups, intrinsic causes, extrinsic causes. Mainly in extrinsic causes, mainly it is a drug like quinidine, procainamide, beta blocker, amiodarone, sotalol, diltiazem, verapamil and digitalis. These are the common drugs which are being used very frequently in the cardiac arrhythmias as well as other cardiac conditions which can give rise to SA node dysfunction. Very rarely antihypertensive drugs like clonidine, reserpine, methyl-dopa, antipsychotic drugs, phenothiazine, lithium, vasovagal syncope, carotid sinus hypersensitivity, hypothyroidism, hypothermia, hyperkalemia, hypoxia, all these are extrinsic causes. Some of these are reversible. Good number of causes are reversible. You stop those conditions or you treat those conditions, it will reverse back. But in an intrinsic variety, particularly the most common is we call idiopathic or degenerative variety, ischemic heart disease, hypertensive heart disease, cardiomyopathy, trauma during surgery, heart transplant, collagen vascular disorders, rheumatic fever, pericarditis, viral myocarditis, Lyme's disease, and neuromuscular disorders like Friedreich's ataxia, etc. All these conditions, almost it is irreversible. Almost it is irreversible. So in this particular group, you require almost nearly what we say is a permanent pacemaker. Very commonly, they require a permanent pacemaker. So try to differentiate those. There is one thing which can appear in a case of a SA node dysfunction is we call inappropriate sinus bradycardia, meaning the person develops a sinus bradycardia which is not appropriate for that particular situation. Means the person develops a bradycardia more than expected. So then we call that as an inappropriate sinus bradycardia. If this becomes symptomatic, it will require treatment. So rate becomes less than 60 and person will start developing symptom if the rate becomes less than 50. And in that case, if a person has got symptomatic bradycardia, he might need a treatment. There is another condition called as an inappropriate sinus tachycardia. Normally, sinus tachycardia can go up to 100. Maximum is 140. But if it increases above 140, then we usually use a term inappropriate sinus tachycardia. Now, this can happen sometime because of excessive automaticity by a SA node. And this can be easily controlled by drugs. Very rarely they require a pacemaker. But sometimes you might need a pacemaker if drug does not give any effect. That is called as a SA block. Means impulse is generated from SA node but is blocked and it does not come out SA node and does not reach atria. Because of this, there is absence of P wave or there is a marked delay in a P wave. Usually there is an absence of P wave, and as the impulse does not reach even AV node, you do not get a QRS complex. So this is classical example of a sinoatrial exit block. Now the second impulse which will be generated by a SA node will pass through SA node into the atrium. So the gap between the previous SA conduction to the next SA conduction will be a multiple of RR, and that is a characteristic of a SA node exit block. I'll show you in a ECG. Now if you look at this, this is a transmission of a sinus impulse to a atrium which produces a P wave. It transmits to the AV node and to the ventricle, produces QRS complex. This is second transmission, so this is an RR interval. This is another transmission, this is an RR. These both are equal. Now here, the impulse should have come out of a SA node somewhere here. Now this has not come out, and as it has not come out, there is no P wave, there is no QRS complex. As there is no P wave and QRS complex, this we call as a sinoatrial block or sinoatrial exit block. And if you look at this interval, this is exactly 2R. This is RR, this is another R, this is equal to 2R. So this is characteristic. So it will be 2R or 3R depending upon how many impulses are blocked. But usually it is not very long. So this is called as a SA block. But depending upon what is the time taken to come out of SA node, there are different varieties which are here. Again, you can see this is RR interval. This is exactly 2R. So impulse here is not transmitted from a SA node to atrium. So there is no P wave, no QRS complex. So whenever you get such things, do think of a SA block. And this interval will be exactly multiple of RR. There are different varieties of SA block. We'll not be discussing at all in a detail. This is mainly identifiable by an EP study. Very, very difficult to identify on EKG. Unless you see in a deep and you try to identify the PP interval, etc. Then you may be able to pick up this first degree, second degree, and in second degree, Van-Quebec fixed block and third degree block. It is like a AV node. And these are the ECG which I could gather from YouTube's and internet, which shows how the PP interval changes and you get different types of block. This is second degree AV block, type 1 variety we call as a Van-Quebec variety. This is type 2 variety we call as a fixed block. These are all the different, this is normal, this is first degree, this is second degree, type 1, type 2, this is advanced block, and this is a third degree SA block. So these are all the different types of blocks which you can see in sinoatrial exit block. I am not going into the detail. If you are interested, you can pause the slide and go through in detail. There is another condition we call as a sinus arrest, or we call sinus pause. What is sinus pause or arrest? Means sinus node does not generate any impulse, and as it does not generate any impulse, it cannot come out of SA node, and it cannot activate the atrium, neither it can activate ventricle. So here is a normal transmission. Now here you don't have any generation of an impulse, so you don't have a P wave, you don't have a QRS complex. It was expected here. The second beat was expected somewhere here. Even here there is no generation. And suddenly now SA node generates an impulse and it is transmitted. And this interval is not multiple of RR. You can see this is overlapping. This is more than 2R but less than 3R. So then this is a sinus arrest. Usually sinus arrest is not more than 2 to 3 seconds. So by and large the sinus arrest is for a short distance, maybe 3 seconds or so. But whenever it is longer, now because there is no QRS complex, no cardiac output, and if there is no cardiac output, there is no blood supply to brain, person will have a pre-syncope, syncope, and sometime, if it is very long enough, person can be unconscious, and very rarely even a person can have a sudden cardiac death. That is extremely rare, but still person can have. Sinus arrest can be prolonged, and if that is prolonged, it can be dangerous one. Once in a while, during this particular period, suppose if the sinus node generates an impulse, it goes to the atrium. So you start getting P wave. But from atrium, it cannot pass through the AV node and cannot activate the ventricle. Ventricle does not get activated, so you get only P wave. So ventricular activation is inhibited. Only atrial activation is there because of the sinus node generation. Then that P wave will be seen. You will not have a QRS complex for each P wave. This will produce again a syncopal attack, we call it a stroke-Adam attack. And suddenly the ventricle starts getting activation because of transmission of impulse, person recovers. But sometimes when this continues for a longer period, we call it a P wave standstill. So, or P wave arrest. So this is what you can come across. So again you can see this is a big pause. There is no P wave, no QRS complex, and that is almost 3.2 seconds. So you can have 2 to 3 seconds, but by and large it is not very prolonged. While in a case of a sinoatrial block, usually it is for 2 beats or 3 beats. So it is 2 hour or 3 hour intervals. So depending upon that, and it is a multiple. You can see here again, this is not the multiple. This is little less than 5. This is more than 3, but less than 4. So these are called sinus pause, or you call sinus arrest. When you get repeated pause, this person will get symptoms, presyncope, syncope, and sometimes person can even become unconscious and can have seizures and can be life-threatening. So do identify that. You can see here there are big pauses, and these pauses will produce severe sinus bradycardia. Is it clear? And if you should be able to identify this. This is not only sinus bradycardia, but this is sinus arrest. So this is sinus arrest. Sinus arrest, prolonged failure of impulse generation within the SA node. So will result in asystole if there is not an escape rhythm. So sinus node has not generated any impulse, and because it has not generated any impulse, now node takes over. So this is node has taken over. So this is a nodal rhythm, or we call junctional rhythm, and junctional rhythm is between 60 to 40 per minute. So you can see here the rate is 43 per minute. So this is sinus arrest where the junction has taken over. So this is classical sinus arrest, or we call sinus pause. But when this happens, sometimes this can be lethal. There is something called as a sinus arrhythmias. Means PP interval between the two successive beats vary slightly normally in a normal person, but PR interval is constant. By and large, this PP interval will differ by 10%. If it is more than 10%, we call that as sinus arrhythmia. And if this minor change in PP interval, which is more than 10% of PP interval, and if it occurs during respiration, then we call it the physiological, or we call respiratory sinus arrhythmias, which is very, very common, and it is quite common with the person who has got COPD, emphysema, etc. And if it is not associated with respiration, then we call non-respiratory sinus arrhythmia, and this is rather uncommon manifestation, and it is not very common. So respiratory sinus arrhythmias will show you that particular ECG, and non-respiratory sinus arrhythmia, which is very commonly because of digitalis, morphine, etc. And sometimes you also come across in a cardiac disease where there is a structural heart disease. Non-respiratory cardiac arrhythmia are likely to be older and have an underlying cardiac disease. Although the arrhythmias are not a marker of a structural heart disease, but can have an underlying cardiac disease. So that is what we call as a respiratory and non-respiratory cardiac. Here you can see that during inspiration the rate is little faster. During expiration the rate becomes little slower. And this difference is not more than 10% of the normal person. So this particular we call as a sinus arrhythmia or sinus dysrhythmia. So here the PP interval increases more than 10% of normal. So this we call as a sinus arrhythmias. You can see again during inspiration it is little faster, during expiration it is slow, again during inspiration faster, again it will become slow. So it will vary with inspiration and expiration. So in inspiration, it will be little fast. In expiration, it will be little slow. Now you can see this is during respiration. There is a change. Expiration, it is little slow. Inspiration, it is little faster. So it is little faster. And you can see it is slow during expiration. While non-respiratory, you can see that it is not related to respiration. It does not change with inspiration or expiration. This particular you should be able to identify. Sometimes this is pathological. Like person might have a structural heart disease. So you should try to remember this. Usually it does not produce much amount of symptoms, and by and large it is not lethal. There is another condition we call as an inappropriate sinus bradycardia. That is, the person should have increase in the heart rate whenever he does certain activity like exercise, climbing staircase, walking, cycling, etc. So if it does not meet that particular requirement, we call as a chronotropic incompetence, or we call inappropriate sinus bradycardia. And this sometimes can be dangerous, because if it does not increases, the person can develop syncope. So try to identify that. By and large, we say that maximum achieved ever at the heart rate, or maximum predicted heart rate at a particular age should be 220 minus 8. So suppose your age is 70, 220 minus 70, you should achieve at least the heart rate. Failure of achieving a heart rate of 120 at the age of 70 years old. So you should achieve up to 150. If you minus 70, that should be there. So you should achieve of 150, 80%. Can you understand very well? So this is 220 minus age. Say I am 70 years. So 220 minus 70, it should be 150. So I should achieve 150. But instead of 150, I go to 120. That is 80% of 150. Then I'll call that person has got a chronotropic incompetence. But if it does not rise above 60, then usually the word utilized is inappropriate sinus bradycardia. You can easily see here, I'll show you here. See, person when he's sleeping, his heart rate should be here, but it is at 50. When he wakes up, he does some exercise. When he starts doing and running, etc., it should reach here. But instead of going here, it remains at this level. Does not change much. Then you will call that as a chronotropic incompetence. And this can be dangerous, because you require a heart rate of around 150 and you don't achieve even more than 60. Then this becomes a chronotropic incompetence. Invariably, they require a rate-driven pacemaker. There is another condition we call as a carotid hypersensitivity. Suddenly, by any mechanism, there is a little pressure on the carotid sinus. There is an abnormal response to carotid sinus massage. And even the person who is having a tight collar, who is wearing on a tie, can have this particular thing. And there can be a pause longer than 3 seconds. You can see there is a big pause here. And when this happens, the person can have symptoms like syncope. And whenever he gets this can be dangerous one. And person can have a fall, can have a head injury, fractures, etc. So try to identify this. Person will give you a typical history that whenever he is standing and whenever he is moving his neck, he is getting a syncopal attack. That is very common in a carotid sinus hypersensitivity. So do try to remember this. Now we are talking about what is sick sinus syndrome. The meaning is very simple. Sinus node is sick. So whenever the sinus node is damaged or sinus node is diseased, you get the symptoms and signs, which is because of the inappropriate function of the sinus node. Sinus node is not able to produce an intrinsic pacemaker activity, that is we call automaticity, as well as there is an abnormality in transmission of impulse from a SA node to a atrium, which will produce sinus bradycardia, tachycardias. That's why it is also called as a brady-tachyarrhythmia syndromes. So there are many names for this. You call tachybradyarrhythmia, or you can call as a brady-tachyarrhythmias, or you call as a lazy sinus syndrome, or you call as a sick sinus syndrome. These are all the different names. The standard word utilized is a sick sinus syndrome. Now in a sick sinus syndrome, because of tachycardia or bradycardia, there are different symptoms. So there is a combination of symptoms because of tachycardia and because of bradycardia. So we'll be showing you that. Now you can see in this ECG and even this previous ECG, you can see here there is a bradycardia, and here there is sudden increase in the bradycardia rate. So here almost it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is less than 60. So you see this, it is changing, but you have got a P wave before each QRS complex. You can see, and QRS complex is normal. You can see P wave is present before each QRS complex. But the rate is constantly changing. And if you see here, there is a flutter, there is a tachycardia, and then there is a sudden pause, a very big pause. You can see here, there is a very big pause. Now either this is a sinus arrest or it is a sinoatrial block. Same way you can see here, there is a tachycardia. This is probably a nodal, you don't see a P wave at all. So this is a nodal rhythm. Rate wise it is faster, so it is a nodal tachycardia. And suddenly if you see here, now this is a sinus beat. This is sinus bradycardia and there is a big pause here. So this may be SA block or sinus arrest, and this is a nodal escape with tachycardia. So this type of, whenever you see an ECG, you call that as a tachybradyarrhythmia syndrome or bradytachyarrhythmia syndrome, or you call it a lazy sinus syndrome, and better word is a sick sinus syndrome. In a bradycardia, you get sinus pause, and these sinus pauses are interrupted by atrial arrhythmias, because whenever there is a pause, the other focus, intrinsic activity of an atrium takes over, like atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, atrial tachycardia, maybe ectopic atrial tachycardia, multifocal atrial tachycardia, etc. And you can have a sinus arrest manifestation after termination of atrial rhythm by what we call is a overdrive pacing or spontaneously. Spontaneously, say atrial rhythm stops, person can have a sinus arrest manifestation. And you try to estimate the sinus node recovery time. Sinus node recovery time is markedly prolonged. It is in favor of a SA node function. That tells you that SA node is dysfunction, and that you can identify when you are doing electrophysiological study. We call EP study. You can clearly see this ECG. Whenever you see such type of ECG, try to suspect, and particularly in old age groups. So this is a peculiar, you can see here, there's a little tachycardia, and then there is a pause. You will go towards bradycardia. You can see there is a bradycardia, there is suddenly a tachycardia. And you have a lot of different types of sinus node dysfunction ECG, as well as you will have a atrial automaticity will be seen. Sinus bradycardia, sinus arrest, sinoatrial block type 1, type 2, type 3, non-sinus tachyarrhythmias like SVT, atrial flutter, atrial fibrillation, sinus node re-entry tachycardias, sinus node recovery time will be more than 1530 milliseconds, or we can call that as the recovery time is markedly prolonged. This is corrected recovery time will be more than 525 milliseconds, and instinct heart rate will be always less than 80 beats per minute. If you see all these things together, and this you can identify only by EP study, that we call as a overdrive pacing. And whenever you do overdrive pacing and you estimate the sinus node recovery time, it will be this. If it is more than this, it is in favor of a sick sinus syndrome. You can see here there is a sinus arrest, then there is an escape mechanism. You can have a sinoatrial node escapes, AV node takes over, and then you will have a nodal rhythm. AV node takes over and you can have a retrograde conduction. Ventricle can take over, you will have a ventricular complex, and you can have even a ventricular complexes following that particular. You can have a intermittent blocks. You can have AV nodal rhythm, like you can see this a junctional rhythm with a P wave inverted just before the QRS complex, and QRS complex is no normal. You can have all this permutation combination, because when SA node does not generate the impulse, the AV node will take over, or atrium will take over, or ventricle will take over. This is very peculiar whenever the person gets brady side. And if the person has got a tachy side, usually it is because of the atrial focus which takes over in absence of SA node stimulation, like atrial flutter fibrillation, multifocal atrial tachycardia, or ectopic atrial tachycardia, all those. And you can see here, this is a sinus arrest followed by a junctional beat. And then you got this P wave just before the QRS complex. You can see there is a big pause, and then junction takes over. So these are all the different types of arrhythmia you can come across. This is again what we have shown you before. So try to go through at leisure time. This is again, I've shown you this slide before. There's a run of flutter, then there is a junctional rhythm, big pause. So this will be interrupted by atrial flutter, variable block, followed by a sinus arrest and junctional escape. All those things you can see. These are all those different types of, you can see a very big pause, very, very big pause. This is a not so small. You can see a very big pause. And during this time, person can have syncopal attacks. You can see that supraventricular tachycardia, followed by a big pause. Again, you can see there is an aberrant conduction. Again, there is a big pause. This is a junctional escape. You can see this is a junctional escape. A big pauses. And this is junctional escape. There is no P wave here. This is the narrow QRS complex, and probably P wave is here. P wave is here. There is no P wave before. So this is a junctional escape. And if you look at the rate, it is very slow. It is slow. I think it is even less than 40. So this is slow junctional escape rhythm with a slow ventricular rate. So these are all the different types of ECG you can see in that particular group. So now coming to the different types of arrhythmia, which we have already shown you. SA block, sinus arrest. Whenever you get a sinus arrest, it is not a, this interval will not be a multiple of RR. It will be either more or less than RR multiple. And this will be exactly the multiple of RR, or we call multiple of PP. So this is a sinoatrial block, and this is sinus arrest. In both, there will be no P wave, no QRS complex. Usually this is not more than 0.3 second. But if it is longer, it will start producing problems. And usually this is followed by a junctional rhythm, or followed by a ventricular escape rhythm. Or sometimes you can have an atrial rhythm takes over, which can be tachyarrhythmias. You can see here again, there is a big pause. But here, there is a P wave. Can you see this P wave? So this is a plain simple severe sinus bradycardia. While here, if you see here, there is no P wave. There is no P wave. So there is a sinus arrest, and then this is a junctional escape peak. Junction has taken over. So try to identify. These are all the different types of ECG you will see. Tachyarrhythmias followed by suddenly a big sinus arrest. And this is a junctional escape. Here, this was an atrial arrhythmias, atrial flutter terminated, and then suddenly there is a big pause because sinus node is not generating any impulse. So person is developing a sinus, there is no P wave, no QRS complex, and then junction takes over. We call it a junctional escape, and the rate wise it is faster, so it is a junctional tachycardia. Now we already told you the etiology in sinus node dysfunction. Same etiology is there. Intrinsic factor, extrinsic factor, quite common. But here, these are intrinsic factor. Most common is sinus node fibrosis, atherosclerosis, congenital heart disease, because of excessive vagal tone or because of drugs, particularly we call ABCD. And this particular will be extrinsic factors. This will be extrinsic factors. This will be also extrinsic factors. Excessive vagal tone, or we call sensitive carotid sinus. So these two will be extrinsic. These are intrinsic factors. These are other intrinsic factors. Familial causes, infiltrative disease, pericarditis, Lyme's disease. This will be in an extrinsic, hypothyroidism. Rheumatic fever will be again intrinsic because it will produce myocarditis. So idiopathic cause, because even when you investigate, you do not identify the exact etiology. So we put idiopathic cause. An SA node can be infiltrated by amyloidosis, sarcoidosis, etc. also. And hypothyroidism, hypothermia, potassium disorders, digitalis, lithium, methyl dopa, reserpine, clonidine, amiodarone, all these are extrinsic factors. These are all in extrinsic factors. Now basic to explain you what is happening, because whenever a person develops a severe bradycardia, there is a fall in the cardiac output, or even when the person develops a severe tachycardia, there is a fall in the cardiac output, and that will produce dizziness, syncopal attacks, and person can have a frequent fall. And because of sudden bradycardia and sudden tachycardia, the commonest symptom is palpitation, and another common symptom is syncope, or we call dizziness, pre-syncope and syncope. And because of that syncope, person can have a fall and injury. So these are the common symptoms, and sometimes some of the arrhythmias can be lethal. So this is one simple slide which shows you everything. If there is a sinus node dysfunction, there will be sinus bradycardia, pauses, exit blocks, chronotropic incompetence, etc. So this will produce bradycardia, pure bradycardia. And because of this bradycardia, person will have a very frequently syncopal attacks, light headache. That is much more common. While a person who develops a atrial arrhythmias in presence of sinus node dysfunction, so because of this atrial arrhythmia, they develop tachycardia, and because of that, very frequently they'll complain of palpitation, they'll complain of chest pain, dyspnea on exertion. Even they might show the clinical evidence of a congestive heart failure. Left ventricular function will be abnormal, ejection fraction will be reduced. So whenever both these things are together, you've got a bradycardia because of sinus node dysfunction, you've got a tachyarrhythmias because of an atrial node taking over, you have got a combination of both these symptoms. So you will have a symptom because of bradycardia, you will have a symptom because of tachycardia, and that is the main pathophysiology. So you should understand that. So symptoms, all these symptoms may be together. Good number of time person is asymptomatic. The most common symptoms is because of bradycardia, and bradycardia will produce fatigue, dizziness, light headache, fainting attacks, shortness of breath. Chest pain is more common with tachycardia. Chest pain, trouble in sleeping, confusion, palpitations, and person might develop a symptom signs because of lack of blood supply to brain in the form of a syncopal attacks, giddiness, hypotension, etc. On examination, suddenly you will have a tachycardia, maybe irregularly irregular pulse, or maybe regularly irregular pulse, or maybe just plain simple tachycardia right from more than 100 to even in a case of a atrial tachyarrhythmia, it can be very fast, more than even 150. And on CVS examination, when you do a cardiovascular system examination, invariably it is a normal. You don't have a murmur, you don't have evidence of other conditions. So this is very common and you can suspect sick sinus syndrome. The main important investigation is an ECG. If ECG is taken and at the time of taking ECG, suddenly you get a run of tachycardias, which are mainly atrial tachycardias in the form of ectopic atrial tachycardia, multifocal atrial tachycardia, or atrial flutter, atrial fibrillation with variable blocks. And suddenly there is a sinus pause, sinus arrest, sinus bradycardia, nodal rhythms, nodal bradycardia, or nodal rhythm between 40 to 60, nodal tachycardias, etc. You can say that this is sick sinus syndrome, or you can call sinus node dysfunction. To confirm, sometimes if you don't pick up and person is complaining of a bradycardia, tachycardia in between, and he is complaining of syncopal attacks, person is symptomatic, you can even ask for what we call the Holter monitoring. Very rarely you require a loop recorders, that is external loop recorders. Very rarely, you don't require usually common, because in an ECG you will be able to pick up tachycardia, bradycardia in a same person at the same time. So that makes you to suspect sick sinus syndrome. In an EP study, you can go for a sinus node recovery time by doing a overdrive pacing and look for recovery time which is markedly prolonged. So you try to identify. So non-invasive approach, and you can go for a thyroid function test like hypothyroidism, TSH will be elevated. In electrolytes disturbances, particularly potassium, hyperkalemia, hypokalemia can produce a disturbances in sinus node dysfunction. You can go for an echocardiography, try to identify any structural heart disease which is usually absent, which is not common in a sick sinus syndrome. You can go for a transesophageal atrial pacing, and with that, which is relatively safe, less expensive, and you can identify a sinus node recovery time, and this is little less traumatic and less discomfort. So try to do this transesophageal atrial pacing, and you can do a overdrive pacing and identify the sinus node recovery time. So symptoms suggestive of a node dysfunction, you take a 12 lead ECG. If you don't pick up, you can go for a Holter monitoring. Even you can go for an exercise testing, and if the person does not have an increase in the heart rate with exercise, it is a chronotropic bradycardia. You can try with atropine and see the results. You can also try with propranolol and see the results. You can have a long-term ECG record like Holter monitoring or an external loop recorders, and you can go for an invasive study like EPS study, but another which is relatively non-invasive study we call as a transesophageal pacing and do a recovery time. You can try with atropine or isoprenolol, propranolol. That is, atropine you can give 1 to 2 milligram, or you can give 2 to 3 microgram per minute of isoprotenolol and see the response. If there is an abnormal response, means if there is not an increase in the heart rate, increase in the sinus rate is less than 25%, or if rate is below 90 per minute, it says that there is a sinus node dysfunction, because whenever you give atropine, the sinus rate should increase at least more than 25% of previous. So you should have an increase in the heart rate, and if the heart rate does not increase, it is considered as an abnormal response, and that is in favor of a sinus node dysfunction, or you can call it a sick sinus syndrome. So that is particular thing. Now sometimes you do not have a standardization in this, that's why these tests are not very useful, but still you can utilize this particular test and you can do even in a OPD. Atropine is better than isoprotenolol. Don't try to use this if you don't have a facilities. You can try with even adenosine, because adenosine is a very short acting. It will act for only 6 seconds. It will directly inhibit the sinus node because it inhibits the potassium conduction. And whenever you give this, and if adenosine, it is better than invasive testing. in a suspected 6 sinus syndrome. So whenever you give an adenosine should block SA node, and when it blocks the SA node, you should have a sinus pause, and then you try to look for the sinus node recovery time. Holter recording is another way to identify what type of cardiac arrhythmia he is having. Loop recorders are not very frequently required in a person with a 6 sinus syndrome. Based is electrophysiological study, and in that electrophysiological study, try to identify corrected sinus node recovery time, which should be more than 500. If it is more than 500 milliseconds, it is straightforward in favor of what we call as a sinus node dysfunction, or we call 6 sinus syndrome. And sinus node conduction time is greater than 200 milliseconds. Sinus node arrest will be present, exit block will be seen, re-entry tachycardias will be seen, and you try to identify the sinus node recovery time. If you can identify that, that gives you the answer regarding a 6 sinus syndrome. You can do a overdrive pacing by transesophageal atrial pacing, and that is relatively less non-invasive technique and gives you a better answer. So you try to identify the sinus node recovery time, and if the sinus node recovery time is markedly prolonged, and if a corrected sinus node recovery time is more than 550 milliseconds, it is in favor of 6 sinus syndrome. Yes, very rarely you come across a person who has got a severe sinus bradycardia, and because of drugs etc. he develops a tachycardia, but at the same time he will not have sinus bradycardia and tachycardia together. If any person while taking an ECG you see a run of tachycardia followed by spontaneous, there is a sinus pause, sinus arrest, sinus bradycardia, nodal rhythms, etc. It is 6 sinus syndrome. Don't suspect any other things. Ischemic heart disease is commonest cause of SA node disorders, and you can get only either tachycardia or bradycardia. You don't come across the mixture of two. What is the treatment? If person is asymptomatic, you can wait and watch. But if a person is symptomatic, he is having a frequent falls, recurrent syncopal attacks, he needs a permanent implantable pacemaker. Now, alternative things which is done in an asymptomatic group, you try to treat the basic etiology if it is treatable, and you can give drugs which will increase the heart rate in a person who is having a prolonged bradycardias, or you can use the drug which will reduce the heart rate in person who is having more of tachycardias. So it will be extremely difficult if the person is getting repeated episode of bradycardia and repeated episode of tachycardias. So in that particular group, it will be difficult to decide which medicine, how much dose to be given, etc. In that case, usually you do a permanent pacing, and after doing a permanent pacing, you can treat, because this permanent pacing can be for both purpose. You can have overdrive pacing in that, and you can have a rate driven depending upon the program you setting. So that is what you can do in that particular person. So this is a flow chart, or we call algorithms, which you, in a suspected case, you go for a history, physical examination, ECG, review the previous records and look at that, and you can go for a endotracheal or esophageal, transesophageal echocardiography, and you can go for even transthoracic echocardiography. Try to identify the structural heart disease which are treatable. Now in this, if you are suspecting and if there is a clear-cut evidence of a 6 sinus syndrome, and if there is a reversible cause, if answer is yes, correct the reversible cause. And if you are trying to correct the reversible cause and if there is no improvement, then you can go for a permanent pacemaker. If reversible cause is absent, it is non-reversible, straightforward you can go for a permanent pacemaker. Or if the person you are not sure, you go for an ambulatory monitoring like Holter monitoring, or you can go for an external loop recorder. Look at the symptoms and correlate with the rhythm. If it is in favor of a 6 sinus syndrome, again try to identify the reversible cause. Again go through that same. If it is not corrected, there is no improvement, go for permanent pacemaker. And if there is an improvement, observe for recurrent episode. And if there is a recurrent episode, again you can go for a permanent pacemaker. And if you can't identify, observe. Best way is to observe. And this is which type of a pacemaker you use, depending upon the type of disturbances. You can use a atrial pacemaker, you can use a rate responsive atrial pacemaker, ventricular pacemaker, rate responsive ventricular pacemaker, dual chamber pacemaker, etc. Depending upon what type of symptoms you get, what type of ECG rhythms you get, etc. And depending upon that EP study, you can decide. Now you know that this is in summary, sick sinus syndrome. What are the things you come across? What are the common etiologies? These are the common etiology. How you recognize that is by ECG. You get a sinus bradycardia, sinus arrest, sinoatrial block type 2 is very common. Non-sinus tachycardia like SVT, atrial flutter fibrillations. Then sinus node recovery time is markedly prolonged. Corrected is also markedly prolonged. And instinct heart rate is always less than 80 per minute. And usually in a therapy, we told you that treat the basic etiology if it is treatable and reversible. You can give anti-bradyarrhythmic agents. You can see for the response. If it is not responding, you can go for an artificial pacemaker, or we call permanent pacemaker. And complications is very commonly because of a fall and head injury. And very rarely person can have lethal cardiac arrhythmias. So try to identify this condition on an ECG. So I thought this topic will be very, very helpful to you. Once in a